When you're deployed overseas, you cling to the little things that remind you of home. Letters, photos, even a text message. But one evening, sitting in a sand-colored barack thousands of miles away, I opened my phone and nearly dropped it. It was a photo. My husband, Daniel, grinning ear to ear with a woman I'd never seen before. His arm wrapped around her shoulders, her hand holding keys. The caption read, "My new girlfriend and I just bought a house, with your savings. She's everything you'll never be." My chest went numb. My own money. My own husband. And a stranger smiling in front of what was supposed to be our future. I typed back one line, my hands steady despite the storm inside. "Wow. You're so smart." What Daniel didn't know. That reply was the first step in his downfall. My name is Eloise, and for most of my marriage I thought loyalty was enough. Daniel and I had been high school sweethearts. He wasn't the ambitious type, but he was charming. When I enlisted, he said he'd hold down the fort. I believed him. Every month, I sent part of my pay into our joint account. It was supposed to be for our dream, our first house. I pictured us walking through hallways freshly painted, arguing over curtains, planting flowers out front. That thought got me through long nights and sandstorms. But that night in the barracks, staring at his message, the dream turned to ash. I reread it over and over. "With your savings." My throat closed. That money was blood and sweat. Every dollar came from 18-hour days, from missing birthdays, from pushing through exhaustion. And now he was flaunting it with a stranger. I tried calling him. No answer. Tried again. Straight to voicemail. Hours later, another message buzzed through. "Stop calling. You'll understand someday." She actually supports me. Supports him. With my money. I buried my face in my hands, the weight of betrayal crushing me. My fellow soldier, Nina, touched my shoulder gently. "You okay?" I forced a smile. "Yeah. Just family stuff." But inside I was breaking. 4 days I went through the motions. Training, patrols, briefings, but my mind was thousands of miles away. I kept wondering, who was she? How long had this been going on? And then, why did Daniel feel bold enough to flaunt it? That question stuck with me. He wasn't just cruel. He was confident. Too confident. One night, lying awake on my cot, I whispered to myself, what if he thinks he's already won? That thought lit a spark in me. Because Daniel didn't know me as well as he thought. He thought I was powerless. Crap. He forgot that I wasn't just his wife. I was a soldier. I knew strategy. I knew patience. And now I had a mission. When the next message came, him and his girlfriend kissing on a porch, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just typed back one sentence. Can't wait to see how this plays out. And that's when I began to plan. The thing about betrayal is this. Once the shock fades, the questions sharpen. After Daniel's messages, I stopped crying, stopped begging, and I started thinking, how had he bought a house without me? Every cent in that joint account was mine. Did he even have the credit? The legal authority? Something didn't add up. During downtime at base, I asked our unit's communications officer if I could borrow the computer. Family finances, I said with a shrug. He nodded, no questions asked. I logged into our joint bank account. My stomach twisted. Almost everything I'd saved over the past 3 years, tens of thousands, was gone. Withdrawn in chunks. But then I noticed something odd. The last transfer didn't go directly to a seller or realtor. It went into Daniel's personal account. My pulse quickened. That was mistake number 1. Next, I dug into our mortgage pre-approval, something we'd applied for before I deployed. I remembered filling out the forms myself. Daniel had no steady job history, no assets. Without me, he couldn't qualify. So how had he convinced anyone to let him close? That's when it clicked. He hadn't told the truth. He couldn't have. If he was trying to use my name, my identity, my signature, he was walking straight into fraud. I leaned back, a cold smile forming. Daniel thought he was the mastermind. But he just tripped the first wire of his own trap. The next day I called Clara, an old friend back home who happened to work at a title office. Clara, I whispered into the satellite phone, I need you to do me a favor. Look up any house purchases under Daniel Miller. See if my name is on the paperwork. There was a pause. Eloise, are you okay? No, I said honestly. But I'm going to be. Hours later she called back, her voice urgent. Eloise, I found it. He submitted papers with both your names on them. But Eloise, she hesitated. The signature next to yours? It's not yours. It's forged. My blood boiled. He hadn't just betrayed me. He'd committed a crime in my name. That night, Daniel sent another smug photo. Him and the girlfriend standing in front of a white picket fence house. Closing day tomorrow. Hope you enjoy funding our future. I stared at the screen, my hands steady now. Tomorrow he thought he was sealing the deal. Tomorrow he'd walk into a bank with forged signatures, false statements, my stolen savings. And tomorrow, he'd find out what happens when you underestimate a soldier. I typed back, cool and calm. Wow, Daniel. You're so smart. He replied instantly with laughing emojis. Finally, you're getting it. But what he didn't know was that, thousands of miles away, I was already 2 steps ahead. Called Clara again. Forward me copies of everything. Every forged signature, every form with my name. I want them all. You're going after him, aren't you? She whispered. Yes, I said, my voice like steel. And I'm not just going after him. I'm going to make sure he destroys himself in the process. As I lay back on my cot, staring at the cracked ceiling of the barack, I realized something. Daniel wanted to humiliate me. He wanted me broken, powerless. But what he didn't understand was that betrayal doesn't always end in weakness. Sometimes it sharpens you. Tomorrow he'd step into that closing office thinking he had won. But I'd already set the trap. And when it snapped shut, Daniel would learn just how smart his soldier wife really was. The morning of Daniel's closing day, I woke before dawn in the barracks. The desert air was cool, the horizon still dark, but my mind was already racing. Thousands of miles away, Daniel and his girlfriend were probably slipping into their best outfits, ready to sign papers and take photos in front of their house. He thought he was unstoppable, but I'd already made my move. The night before, Clara had sent me scanned copies of every fraudulent document. My signature was sloppy, uneven, nothing like mine. I packaged them into a single email with a clear subject line. Urgent. Fraudulent mortgage documents. Identity theft. I sent it to the bank, the title company, and the realtor handling the sale. I CC'd a local fraud investigator too. By the time Daniel walked into that office, his perfect plan was already crumbling. Later, Clara called me, voice trembling with excitement. She had a friend inside the title office who spilled everything. Daniel strutted in like a king, his girlfriend, Sierra, on his arm, dressed in a bright red dress. He cracked jokes about how his wife overseas finally got replaced. They sat down at the table, papers stacked high, pens ready. The notary slid the forms forward. We just need both parties present to finalize. Daniel smirked. Oh, Eloise couldn't make it. But don't worry, we've got everything handled. The notary's eyes narrowed. Actually, we need to discuss something. Came the email I'd sent. The forged signatures. The flagged fraud alert. The notary's voice was sharp now. Mr. Miller, we have reason to believe these documents contain forged information. The primary applicant, your wife, has denied signing any of this. The room froze. Sierra blinked, confused. Wait, what? Daniel's mask cracked. He laughed too loudly. This is ridiculous. Eloise is just bitter. She gave me permission. The bank rep cut him off. Sir, forging a spouse's signature on a mortgage is a federal crime. This isn't about bitterness. This is about fraud. Clara told me. His face turned red. His hands shaking as he slammed the pen down. She's lying. She always does this to me. She's trying to ruin my life. The more he ranted, the worse it got. His voice rose to a shout, the office staff shifting uncomfortably as he hurled accusations. Sierra pulled her hand back, staring at him with wide, horrified eyes. "You told me the money was yours," she whispered. "It is mine," Daniel barked. "Eloise doesn't need it. She's off playing soldier while I'm stuck here." That was the final nail. Security was called in. The deal was halted. The file was locked under investigation. Daniel's dream house slipped through his fingers right there at the table. Clara's friend said he became hysterical, sweating, pacing, his voice cracking as he begged the staff to just ignore the email. But the staff stood firm. Fraud had been flagged. The police were notified. Sierra stood up, her face pale. "You said everything was clean," she hissed. "You said she didn't matter." Daniel tried to grab her wrist, but she pulled away, storming out of the office and leaving him to sink alone. When Clara told me all this over the phone, I sat on my bunk, gripping the receiver so tightly my knuckles whitened. A rush of satisfaction surged through me. Not joy, not triumph exactly, but justice. Daniel had taken my trust, my money, my future. He thought I'd be powerless from halfway across the world. Instead, with one email, I'd turned the entire table on him. That night, a message came through from Daniel. "You think you're so clever. You've ruined everything. They're threatening charges." Clara left. "Are you happy now?" I stared at the words, my lips curling into the faintest smile. Finally, he understood. I typed back one line. "Wow, Daniel, you're so smart." And I put my phone away, letting the silence finish what words never could. After Daniel's meltdown at the title office, the storm didn't quiet, it shifted. He bombarded me with emails and messages. Long rants, alternating between blaming me and begging me. "You've embarrassed me. You ruined everything. We can still fix this if you just stop." But I didn't answer. Silence is a weapon, and for the first time I held it steady. Instead, I focused on building my case. Clara connected me with a fraud investigator who confirmed what I already knew. Forging a spouse's signature wasn't just morally rotten. It was illegal. Crime. If Daniel thought he could play house with stolen money, he was about to find out how sharp the law's teeth could be. From the barracks, I drafted a formal statement, attaching every document Clara had dug up. Every fake signature. Every fraudulent form. Every bank transfer. When I hit send, I felt something I hadn't in weeks. Control. Meanwhile, Sierra, the new girlfriend, reached out. Her message was short, hesitant. "I didn't know. I thought the money was his. He lied to me too. I left him." I stared at the screen. For a second I felt pity. Then I remembered her smiling in those photos with my husband, holding the keys to our future. But maybe she was another pawn. Adrian's cruelty wasn't picky. It spread to whoever trusted him. I typed back. "If you want to help, tell the truth." Hours later, she replied with screenshots. Messages where Daniel bragged about draining Eloise's account, about moving fast before she comes back. Evidence. Clear. Fleming. The walls around Daniel were caving in. And yet, part of me felt the ache of heartbreak. I remembered the boy I'd first loved, the one who used to drive me to the beach at midnight, swearing he'd never leave me. The one who hugged me so tight before my deployment and said, "Don't worry, I'll take care of everything here." That boy was gone, replaced by a man who saw loyalty as weakness and sacrifice as an opportunity. But mourning him wouldn't save me. Strategy would. I called Nina, my closest friend on base. Sitting under the night sky, stars flickering faintly, I whispered. "He thinks I'm still playing defense." "And you're not?" she asked. "No," I said firmly. "I'm done reacting. Now I'm going on offense." The plan was simple but lethal. Step 1. Let Daniel know I wasn't bluffing. I forwarded the case file to him directly, complete with Sierra's screenshots. Step 2. Secure my finances. I had Clara help me separate my name from every joint account, every shared credit card. Daniel's access was shut down overnight. Step 3. Prepare for court. With the investigator Sierra's cooperation, and a lawyer like Mr. Hayes reviewing the files, Daniel's fraud case was no longer speculation. It was reality. The next morning I got one last desperate email from him. "You think you've won. When you get back you'll have nothing. You can't beat me. You're weak, Eloise. Always have been." I stared at the words, but instead of pain, I felt a strange calm. Weak. I had endured deserts, separation, war zones. I had fought battles Daniel couldn't even imagine. And now I was fighting one more, the battle for myself. I typed back, simple and sharp. "See you in court." And for the first time since his betrayal I smiled. Because Daniel wasn't just losing me. He was losing everything. When I pressed send on that last message, "See you in court," it felt like slamming a door shut. And on the other side of it, Daniel began to unravel. First he postured. Long, angry emails where he insisted I'd regret this. He tried threats, claiming he'd tell everyone I abandoned him, that I was unfit as a wife. But then the tone shifted. His confidence cracked. "They froze my account. The realtor won't take my calls. The investigator came by today." Each message was shorter. Harper. His arrogance shrank into desperation. Clara called me one evening, her voice buzzing through the static. "You won't believe it. Daniel showed up at my office today. Sweating, stammering, begging me to help him undo the paperwork." "What did you say?" "Yes." "I told him the truth," she said firmly. "That you're not alone. That he picked the wrong woman to betray." I closed my eyes, letting the words settle like armor around me. For so long I had felt like the abandoned one. But now it was Daniel standing outside locked doors. Meanwhile, my lawyer Mr. Hayes was building the case brick by brick. Sierra had officially submitted her screenshots as evidence. Lena and Camila, two women Daniel had swindled before me, came forward after hearing whispers of the investigation. What once felt like a private wound was now an exposed pattern. Daniel wasn't unlucky in love. He was a predator. Mr. Hayes called me late one night. "With this much testimony, Eloise, he won't just face civil penalties. He could face prison time. You've done more than protect yourself. You've protected future victims." The words made my chest ache, but in a good way. For the first time my pain had a purpose. And while Daniel spiraled, I began to rebuild. On base I pushed harder during training, poured myself into discipline, focus, strength. Every rep felt like shedding the weight of him. Nina noticed. "You've changed," she said one evening under the desert stars. "Better or worse?" "Tease." She smiled. "Stronger." Daniel, on the other hand, was crumbling. Clara told me he had sold his car just to pay for a lawyer. Sierra refused to speak to him. The so-called friends he bragged about vanished the moment the fraud investigation made headlines. The man who once laughed in my face, holding keys to our house, was now reduced to panicked voicemails. The last one I listened to. His voice cracked mid-sentence. "Eloise, please. I didn't mean it. I just wanted to feel important. Don't let them take everything. Please, I'm begging you." Played it twice. Not because I wanted to forgive him, but because I needed to remember. This was who he truly was. Not the charming husband, not the dreamer with midnight promises. Just a coward exposed by his own greed. I didn't reply. Silence was still my weapon. Weeks passed. The case moved forward. Papers filed, hearings scheduled. Daniel's world shrank to courthouses and debt collectors. Mine expanded. I began setting aside new savings, separate and secure. I took an online course for certifications I'd dreamed about but never pursued. I wrote long letters home to Clara, promising that when I returned, I'd start fresh, with no shadows trailing me. Every step I took forward felt like reclaiming territory Daniel had tried to steal. My money, my trust, my power. And each day I felt lighter. One evening Nina asked quietly, "Do you think you'll ever forgive him?" Thought about it. About the betrayal, the theft, the humiliation. "No," I said softly. "But I don't need to." Because forgiveness isn't the same as freedom. And I already have my freedom. Daniel once tried to define me as weak, disposable, replaceable. But now, he was the one unraveling. And I was the one stronger than ever. The day Daniel faced court, I wasn't there in person. I was still deployed, but I didn't need to be. Clara sat in the gallery, phone in her lap, sending me whispered updates as everything unfolded. Daniel entered looking like a shell of himself. Gone was the smug grin from his photos, the bravado from his emails. His suit was wrinkled, his hair unkempt, dark circles under his eyes. Clara's first message buzzed across my phone. He looks terrified. The hearing began. The prosecutor laid everything out like a carefully drawn map. Bank transfers, the fake signatures, the messages where Daniel bragged about using my savings. Sierra's testimony was presented. Lena's, Camila's. Each piece landed like a hammer. Daniel shifted in his seat, his jaw tightening. He muttered under his breath. Finally, when they played one of his voicemails, "She's off playing soldier while I'm stuck here. I'll use her money the way I want," Clara texted me. He's turning red. Everyone's staring. When it was his turn, Daniel tried to spin the story. "She's lying," he stammered. "My wife is bitter. She wanted out of the marriage, so she's framing me. Those women, they're just jealous exes. They're conspiring." But the judge's face stayed cold. "So you're saying the forged signatures are her doing? That she falsified her own name to trap you?" Daniel swallowed hard. His words crumbled. And then came the final blow. Sierra herself walked into the courtroom. She stood tall, voice steady. "He told me the money was his," she said. "He told me Eloise didn't matter. But when I found out the truth, I left. I couldn't let him ruin anyone else." She handed over her phone with the screenshots of his boasts. The jury didn't even blink. They believed her instantly. Clara's last message came through. "He's hysterical, shouting. Security is holding him back. He's finished." I set my phone down on my bunk, closing my eyes. Thousands of miles away, the man who had stolen my trust, my money, my dreams, was unraveling in front of the world. And I hadn't even had to raise my voice. The truth spoke louder than anything I could have said. When the verdict came, Clara called me directly. Her voice was thick with emotion. "They found him guilty, Eloise. Fraud, forgery, attempted theft. He's going to face time." I sat there in silence for a moment, letting the words wash over me. Not relief exactly, not joy. Something deeper. Vindication. That night, I walked out into the desert, the sky scattered with stars. For the first time in months, I could breathe without that tightness in my chest. Daniel had taken so much from me, but he couldn't take this. My strength, my future, my freedom. Weeks later, I got one last letter from him. Scrawled handwriting, desperate words. "I'm sorry. Please forgive me. I didn't mean it. I just wanted to feel important. Please don't let me rot here." I folded the letter once, twice, and dropped it into the trash. Because forgiveness wasn't required for closure. I already had closure. And when I finally returned home, Clara was waiting at the airport. She hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. "You did it," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "He did it to himself. I just refused to stay silent." That's when I realized. Daniel had always underestimated me. He thought I was weak because I was quiet, dependable, forgiving. But quiet doesn't mean weak. Quiet can mean patient. Quiet can mean strategic. Quiet can mean dangerous. And when the storm finally broke, I didn't just survive it. I walked out stronger than I had ever been. The day I finally stepped off the plane and felt American soil beneath my boots again, the weight I had been carrying for months seemed to lift. My deployment was over. My battle with Daniel was over. And for the first time in years, my future was mine alone. Clara ran to me at the arrival's gate, tears streaming down her face. She clutched me so tightly I almost laughed. "You did it," she whispered. But I shook my head softly. No, Clara. He did it to himself. I just stopped protecting him. In the weeks that followed, the pieces of my life slowly fell back into place. Daniel's trial had left him with a sentence, fines, and a reputation destroyed. His name was whispered in the small town we grew up in, but never with admiration anymore. As pity, as shame. For so long I had imagined revenge as fire, as rage, as screaming in his face. But the reality of justice was quieter. It was the sound of papers stamped, the silence of his number blocked on my phone, the peace of waking up and not wondering what manipulation waited in my inbox. I moved my money into a new account, untouchable, secure. I hired a financial advisor who taught me how to grow it, how to build real wealth with discipline and care. Each deposit felt like reclaiming territory, an act of healing. And slowly I let myself dream again. Not about the house Daniel and I once planned, but about something better. A home that was truly mine. A space built on honesty, not betrayal. One afternoon I sat with Clara at a cafe downtown. She stirred her coffee, eyes thoughtful. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Regret what?" "Exposing him. Fighting back. Do you ever wish you just walked away quietly?" I looked at her for a long moment, then shook my head. If I had walked away, he'd still be out there, charming someone else, stealing from someone else. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about making sure his cycle ended. She nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "You're braver than anyone I know." But I smiled faintly. Not braver. Just done being silent. The truth is, Daniel thought silence was weakness. He thought I'd be too far away, too powerless, too dependent. But silence, I've learned, is a weapon. Silence is waiting until the right moment to strike. Silence is letting your enemies believe they've won, only to watch them collapse under their own arrogance. And that's exactly what happened. Months later, standing in the backyard of the small cottage I finally bought on my own, I let the sunlight warm my skin. No shared accounts, no forged papers, no fake promises, just me. The grass was patchy, the shutters needed paint, but it was mine. Every inch of it earned through my strength, my discipline, my refusal to surrender. I wasn't Daniel's victim anymore. I was Eloise, soldier, survivor, builder of her own future.